with a look at the day's headlines. Is Kim Jong-un out of town? Reports suggest a mystery visitor to Beijing could be the North Korean leader himself. No confirmation from China, South Korea or the US as of yet. The UAE completes the first of 4 Korean-built nuclear power plants, a milestone in the oil-rich country's efforts to slash its reliance on fossil fuels. The new deals will also pocket South Korea a cool $25 billion. Plus, more than 20 countries are kicking out Russian diplomats in a coordinated response to the poisoning of an ex-Russian spy in the UK. So, there is speculation North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is in China ahead of his scheduled summits with South Korean President Moon Jae-in and US President Donald Trump. But Chung Hwa-dae and the White House say they can't confirm the reports, adding to the intrigue. China's foreign ministry has also refused to comment. Kim Hyo-sun starts us off.
Reports say a high-ranking North Korean official appears to be visiting China, adding that it could be the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un. Citing unidentified sources, Bloomberg reported that Kim has made a surprise visit to Beijing, his first overseas trip since taking power in 2011, but added no further details were available. Japanese media, including Kyodo News Agency and NTV, also reported that speculation about a possible visit by the North Korean leader circulated around the Chinese capital on Monday, as a special train similar to the one used during Kim Jong-il's visit to the nation was spotted in Beijing. They added that security was tight around the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, while a North Korean embassy vehicle was also spotted. While the Chinese Foreign Ministry refused to be drawn on the alleged visit, South Korea's presidential office said it could not verify the reports, adding that it's keeping a close eye on related reports. Chung Hwa-dae explained the North Korean high-ranking official visiting Beijing may not be Kim Jong-un, adding that nothing has been confirmed yet. The White House also said it could not confirm whether Kim is in China. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, President Moon Jae-in is in the UAE for his first official visit to the Middle East since taking office last year. As President Moon nears the end of his trip, the Blue House says the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi has ordered his aides to ink $25 billion worth of contracts with South Korean firms. Our presidential office correspondent Moon Gun-young files this report.
The United Arab Emirates, although its ties with South Korea stretches back nearly 40 years, it's only been in the last decade or so that the relationship got stronger. Well, that partnership just got bumped up to a whole new level in the desert sand dunes of Baraka, nearly 240 kilometers away. From the capital, Abu Dhabi, a roughly 3-hour drive through endless sand dunes, stands a nuclear power plant under construction. This is the Baraka nuclear power plant, a $20 billion nuclear plant which is Seoul's first attempt to build an atomic reactor abroad. The first of its 4 reactors being built in the UAE's western desert near the Saudi border is scheduled to come online this year, making it the first nuclear power plant on the Arabian Peninsula. But it's more than that. It's a symbol of trust between South Korea and the UAE, according to the leaders of the two countries. South Korean President Moon Jae-in traveled to Baraka on the 3rd day of his 4-day official visit to the UAE, and accompanying him, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan of Abu Dhabi. There, the two leaders declared work on the first reactor at Baraka complete. The South Korean president said the UAE has vowed to vouch for South Korea as Saudi Arabia is slated to pre-qualify several international companies next month to bid for building 2 nuclear reactors. Crown Prince Mohammed took to Twitter to thank President Moon for his country's cooperation in the nuclear plant project, saying the achievement is historical for the UAE energy sector and said their work together is an exceptional model relationship. Senior Blue House officials traveling with the president unveiled that the powerful Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi has given his word that $25 billion worth of various projects will be given to South Korean firms. Sources familiar with the issue say these are contracts that had been put on hold by the UAE over its objection regarding a possible change to a secret military cooperation deal made between Seoul and Abu Dhabi under the Lee Myung-bak administration in 2009. If true, the $25 billion green light from Crown Prince Mohammed may be a signal that any kind of issues there may have had been, whether military or not, have been smoothed out completely during Mr. Moon's visit to the Gulf nation. From mending the fences to building trust and friendship between the two countries, the two leaders, it looks like President Moon Jae-in leaves with what he came for, al-Rafiq Qabl al-Tariq, to choose a companion for a long journey ahead. From Abu Dhabi, the UAE, Moon Gon-young, Arirang News.
Now, the Presidential Office of Cheongwade has submitted the government's proposal to amend the constitution to Parliament, and now the ball is in the National Assembly's court. It's almost certain to be a bumpy road ahead, but can the parties hammer out a compromise in time for it to be put to a referendum in June? Our Kim Min-ji reports.
The ball is now in the National Assembly's side following the submission of the government's proposal to amend the Constitution on Monday. March 26th gives Parliament the full 60 days for deliberation and takes into account other legal procedures that's required, in time to hold a referendum alongside local elections on June 13th. The president's proposal came as talks have made little progress at the National Assembly, with lawmakers unable to come up with a proposal of their own. The government hopes that its submission will be able to stimulate parliamentary talks. Should parties aim for June 13th, they need to reach parliamentary consensus by May 4th at the latest to give it just the right number of days to complete the amendment procedure. Any proposal, whether it be the government's or Parliament's, will need more than two-thirds backing from the 293-seat National Assembly to pass. But the main opposition Liberty Korea party, which holds almost 40% of the seats, has been strongly against the government's draft. Major areas of contention go from timing of the referendum and presidential term to how the prime minister is elected and even government structure. Although it's unclear how things will turn out, the die is cast, and since the information of the bill has been made public, the parliament will no doubt face a great deal of pressure.
The reason Koreans mistrust lawmakers is because they don't keep their promises. All parties pledged to carry out a referendum in June. Talks have started since January last year, and now saying they need more time, no one is going to buy that. They need to keep their promise to secure trust. On top of that, cost saving. It will also mean more voter turnout for elections.
However, it now depends on how much parties are willing to concede. Should they fail to come up with a proposal on time, experts say parties need to at least show that they have the urge to amend the Constitution at a later date.
Because it requires two-thirds support, the main opposition party could just turn it down. But there's no point in putting it up for a vote if it's going to be voted down. Instead, because the president said he's willing to scrap his proposal, parties should at least set a new date and have their drafts ready by then.
For the next month or so, the National Assembly will be under the microscope, with interest focused on how parties will narrow their differences and land on the same page, or whether they will stand on parallel lines and in opposite directions. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The government has laid the groundwork for next year's budget, which aims to solve major socio-economic issues by improving citizens' livelihoods. A cabinet meeting on Monday approved by the government's guideline for its 2019 budget plan, which amounts to some $419 billion. The government plans to focus the budget on 4 core areas, including mitigating youth unemployment and raising the nation's chronically low birth rate. Seoul also aims to promote innovative growth by creating jobs in the fourth industrial revolution technologies, such as drones and driverless cars, and to bolster safety and security for citizens. Now, with the nation blanketed with the worst toxic smog so far this year, South Korea's Environment Ministry has decided to implement emergency measures for the second straight day. With emergency advisories sent to everyone's smartphones on Monday, the ministry has called on local governments to take emergency procedures to reduce the level of fine dust on Tuesday. Measures include reducing hours of operation for public facilities, running air cleaning trucks during the day, and instituting an alternate driving day system for public sector workers in the Seoul area. Experts say Korea could be hit by high levels of fine dust repeatedly until June, when temperatures rise and the air mass becomes more unstable. So, as we heard there, local authorities took emergency measures on Monday to try and tackle the high level of ultra-fine dust that has been cloaking Korea by imposing an alternate no driving day and also shutting down all public parking lots. But are steps like that really that effective? Our Kim Jong-un takes a deeper look.
As the average ultra-fine dust level in Seoul peaked at a record high of 99 micrograms per cubic meter on Sunday, the capital city, along with Incheon and Gyeonggi-do province, announced that it's implementing emergency fine dust reduction measures for the fourth time this year on Monday, and those measures will be extended until Tuesday. The measures include holding an alternating no driving day, closing nearly 500 public parking lots, and operating air cleaning trucks during the day to clean the dust from the streets. But this time around, the city had to cancel its public transport fee waiver during rush hours as concerns have been raised over its cost effectiveness since it was last implemented in January. The Environment Ministry also announced that beginning Tuesday, it will lower the current threshold for ultra-fine dust levels to be classified as bad from the current 50 to 35 micrograms per cubic meter per day, which is on par with that of the US and Japan. But despite such efforts, many citizens say they're suffering as a result of the pollution.
I didn't wear a mask yesterday and my throat was very sore, so I had to buy one today.
It's really bothersome that I have to wear masks these days because of the fine dust. I hope the government can come up with an effective solution.
An environment expert pointed out that the current government measures need to be further developed to obtain visible results.
As of now, we don't have any coercive measures backed up by the law, just some partial countermeasures that ask for public participation, so I think the current measures are not very effective.
He said that in order to deal with the problem, mandatory regulations should first be created, which can then be boosted through active participation from the public. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, on dusty days like these, it's highly advisable, of course, to minimize your outdoor activities and particularly those of your children. However, by integrating what Korea is really good at, high tech, with education, young students can stay indoors and still get the physical education they need to stay strong and healthy. Lee Jung-yeon reports.
The virtual world is slowly expanding into the daily lives of South Korean school kids. Here is the first school in Chungcheongbuk-do province to introduce what's called a virtual reality sports center. This place is designed to be a safe environment where kids can learn sports without the constraint of time or space. It uses screens and sensors that register the person's movements. In just this room alone, kids can play a multitude of sports, including baseball and soccer, as well as learn games that supplement their school curriculum. Over the last 3 years, the Cultural Ministry has invested some 6 billion won, or around $5 million to build an integrated sports platform for kids. A trial run of the VR Sports Center was carried out at 10 schools last year. After a positive response from students and parents, what initially targeted kids with little access to sports facilities, like those from lower-income families or those with disabilities, is now being expanded to include all children.
At first it felt foreign to me, but now I actually prefer this to playing sports outdoors because it's more convenient.
If I play soccer outside, I get a lot of sand in my eyes, and it can get very hot, so I like this better.
Some $6 million worth of investment was made this year alone to expand the facility to 178 schools nationwide.
The VR sports facility allows students to break a sweat even when fine dust levels are high like they are today. Kids can also learn about a range of subjects, so the content also gets updated accordingly.
A long list of VIPs were present at the opening ceremony, including the Culture Minister To Jong-un. Specific outlines for expanding these centers across the nation are to be discussed starting in April. Lee Jung-yeon, Arirang News, Eumseong.
Now, South Korea's consumer sentiment fell for a fourth consecutive month in March. The Bank of Korea says the composite consumer sentiment index edged down 0.1 points from the previous month to 108.1. The reading is well above 100, meaning there are still more optimists than pessimists. But consumer confidence related to current domestic conditions, that fell to a 6-month low, and consumer sentiment regarding future conditions edged down as well in March. The central bank attributed the fall to growing concerns on rising trade protectionism that could hurt Korean exports, as well as the restructuring of local companies and the GM Korea shutdown. Samsung Electronics has come out on top in the product category of Best Brands France Award 2018, proving its position as a global brand. In the corporate category, the South Korean tech giant came in second behind Amazon. Best Brands Award is organised by Service Plan Group, which is Europe's largest independent communications agency, jointly with GfK, which is Germany's world-renowned market research organisation based on surveys conducted in Europe and China. Now for a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we're going to start with the latest on the poisoning of a former Russian spy in the United Kingdom. The United States has joined a whole host of other nations in expelling Russian diplomats in a coordinated response to the nerve agent attack. For more on this and other international news, let's turn to our Noah Adam. So, Adam, Western nations have been pointing their fingers vigorously at Moscow for this attack, and now they have joined forces in punishing Russia.
Yes, that's right, Mark. The US has banded together with several EU nations, as well as Canada and the Ukraine, timing their announcements within a few hours on Monday for maximum effect. Washington is expelling 60 Russian diplomats and intelligence officers, which is President Trump's strongest action against Russia since coming to office. Trump has always avoided directly challenging his Russian counterpart, but it seems he's bowing to pressure from Democrats and some Republicans to take a tougher stance against the Kremlin. The 60 Russian diplomats are part of more than 100 of their colleagues from 20 other nations that have been told to leave their respective countries. It marks the biggest Western expulsion of Russian diplomats since the height of the Cold War. British Prime Minister Theresa May welcomed the show of solidarity, saying it sent the strongest signal to Russia that it cannot continue to flout international law. Moscow called the expulsions a provocative gesture, threatening to kick out an equal number of foreign diplomats. Russia's embassy in Washington also responded to a consulate closure in Seattle by asking its Twitter followers to vote which US consulate in Russia it should close. The Kremlin also said President Putin would soon be making a final decision about Russia's response. The UK and the European Union have said it is highly likely that Moscow was behind the poisoning of Sergei Skripal and his daughter in Salisbury earlier this month, but Moscow continues to deny involvement. The US Senate Judiciary Committee has formally invited Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg to testify on April 10th about his company's data scandal. He'll be joined by the CEOs of Twitter and Google as concerns grow about the abuse of user data and privacy. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Political pressure on Facebook and its CEO Mark Zuckerberg is intensifying as a number of lawmakers have invited the billionaire to testify before the Senate in early April as the investigation into the misuse of Facebook users' data rumbles on. According to the Senate Judiciary Committee, it will hold a hearing on April 10th about data privacy in social media and has invited both the chief executives of Google and Twitter along with Zuckerberg. Facebook is at the center of a widening investigation as the Federal Trade Commission has confirmed it's investigating Facebook's privacy practices after reports the company allowed the political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica to harvest 50 million users' data. The UK-based consultancy firm is known to have been employed by Donald Trump's presidential campaign. While Facebook executives have been trying to reassure users that their personal information remains well protected, elected officials have demanded Zuckerberg himself appear before Congress. The push gained momentum with the support of Senator Chuck Grassley, an Iowa Republican who chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee. Grassley stated that the upcoming hearing would examine the protection and monitoring of consumer data. Despite Zuckerberg's full-page ads in several US and UK newspapers over the weekend, apologizing for Facebook's involvement in the scandal, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee from both parties felt his public apology and explanation was inadequate. Zuckerberg had earlier said he would be happy to testify before Congress if he is the right person in Facebook with the most knowledge on the issue. Meanwhile, the hashtag #DeleteFacebook began trending worldwide as many Facebook users are choosing to deactivate their accounts amid the scandal, with the company's stock price continuing to plunge. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, the White House has continued to deny that President Trump had an affair with porn star Stormy Daniels. Monday's comments by Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah came after a TV interview in which Daniels said she was threatened with violence to keep quiet about the alleged sexual encounter with Trump in 2006.
With respect to that interview, I will say the President strongly, clearly, and has consistently denied these underlying claims, and the only person who's been inconsistent is the one making the claims.
During the interview with CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday, Daniels said she had accepted $130,000 to keep quiet about the affair and that she was also threatened by a stranger in a car park back in 2011 to, quote, leave Trump alone. But the Deputy Press Secretary said the President does not believe Daniels' claim to be true. Trump's lawyer is seeking millions of dollars in damages from Daniels for breaking the non-disclosure deal. CBS said the interview was viewed by more than 21 million people and was the program's second most viewed show after a 2008 post-election interview with the Obamas.
Good morning. Seoul will be covered in a thick layer of fine and ultra-fine dust for another day, while a 3-day major smog alert remains in place around Beijing. In South Korea, will continue to be smoggy all day, so please do wear a dust mask when heading out and drink plenty of water to protect yourself from the hazardous air. Daily highs will be in the upper teens to way into the 20s, and Seoul will be getting up to 18 degrees Celsius, while those of you in Daegu and Gyeongju will have early May-like highs at 23 degrees Celsius. The warming trend will continue for a while, but fine dust levels could remain relatively high as well. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. So many parts of South Korea will notice much milder highs in the afternoon with high levels of fine dust all day. Most parts of North Korea will have sunny skies with high levels of toxic dust as well. And as for the rest of Asia, Beijing and China's northeast in general is under a major smog alert, the third of 2018. And it looks like it will be a mostly sunny day in Sydney with a maximum temperature of 25 degrees in the city and 27 in the west today. And heading to North America, Montreal will notice a much milder start to the day. Morning lows will kick off in positive territory at 2 degrees Celsius on Tuesday. And as for South America, Santiago and Rio de Janeiro will be under sunny skies with very warm highs. And taking you to Europe, cool, sunny, dry weather is about to disappear from London with rain in the forecast and temperatures dipping back below the seasonal averages. Lastly, to Africa, rain in Tripoli will bring the temperatures down to the cooler side. And that's all the weather update for now.
Well, on that note, that's where we're going to leave the news for now. We're going to shoot for having our next bulletin ready for noon Korea time. So until then, goodbye.